The chamber of triumph gleamed with steel and arrogance. Alien banners shimmered across the vaulted walls, their colors pulsing in rhythm with the hum of energy shields. The Galactic Empire loved ceremony more than strategy, and today was proof. 1,000 delegates packed the council amphitheater, their eyes slitted, multifaceted, or glowing, fixed on the center stage, where 2 empty slabs lay beneath the glare of ceremonial floodlights. The Emperor himself raised his clawed hand for silence, his crown of obsidian crystals catching the light like shards of broken stars. "Behold," he intoned, his voice amplified across the chamber, "the end of Earth's defiance. The humans, those scavenger apes, are extinguished. Their most dangerous specimens have been executed." A wave of applause rippled through the species gathered. Metallic wings clattered, tendrils slapped, mandibles clicked. The Empire's subjects relished the notion that the troublesome world, that young civilization with more stubbornness than sense, had been humbled. Holoscreens above the chamber replayed looping images. 2 human figures strapped to posts, energy blasts engulfing them in dazzling fire. A death spectacle edited for maximum humiliation. The crowd roared, but among them were whispers of unease. The footage had been suspiciously crisp, staged even. Yet propaganda was always a little dishonest, wasn't it? What mattered was the Empire's declaration. Humanity's most dangerous predators were dead. Behind the scenes, in the subterranean levels of the fortress station, 2 shadows lingered in a dim-lit cell. The air smelled of iron and antiseptic. The walls pulsed faintly with restraining fields. In the corner sat a woman, her posture composed, her expression unreadable. Her hair was cropped close, her eyes pale as winter light, her hands folded in her lap as though she were waiting for tea rather than captivity. She was known on Earth by a name whispered like a bedtime story for disobedient children, the Baba Yaga. Across from her sprawled a broad-shouldered man, his ankles crossed, humming tunelessly as he examined a dent in the ceiling. His jaw was square, his grin infuriatingly casual, as if imprisonment were a minor inconvenience. He had once been a soldier, then something darker, an operator in shadows, a rumor made flesh. To America, he had been the boogeyman whispered of in foxholes and enemy camps alike. The guards who patrolled the hallway outside found them unsettling in opposite ways. The woman never spoke, never twitched, never even blinked too often. The silence pressed against them like a blade against a throat. The man, by contrast, spoke too much, his words ricocheting with an almost nonsensical humor. "You folks ever seen baseball?" he asked the insectoid warden the night before, his voice carrying through the energy bars. "It's like war, only with more spitting and hot dogs. You'd love it." The alien had clicked its mandibles in irritation and refused to answer. But later in the barracks, it confessed to its comrade that it couldn't stop picturing a battlefield full of humans chewing strange meat sticks while charging enemy lines. Now, as the Empire celebrated above, the prisoners listened to the muffled vibrations of triumph echoing down the walls. "They're celebrating," the man said, his voice low but bright. He tilted his head, as though catching the rhythm of the stomping alien feet. "Sounds like a parade. Never trusted parades. Clowns always lurking in those." The woman shifted only enough to glance at him. Her eyes were sharp, surgical. "They believe we're dead." "Which is funny," he replied, tapping the restraining cuff around his wrist. "Because my pulse feels alive and kicking. Yours." She ignored the joke, though a flicker of something, approval, annoyance, both, glimmered in her gaze. "They will lower their guard," she murmured, her voice barely more than breath. It carried the weight of inevitability. Arrogance precedes collapse. "Now you sound like my grandma," the man said, chuckling. "She used to say, 'Don't count your chickens before the fox shows up.' Different words, same idea. You'd have liked her, mean with a frying pan." The woman's eyes returned to stillness, but her lips twitched almost imperceptibly. The guards watching the cell cameras would not have noticed, but the man did. Above, the Emperor continued his performance. He spoke of the Empire's eternal supremacy, of the lesson taught to humanity, of the fragility of Earth's spirit. He never mentioned that Earth had repelled 3 incursions in the past decade, nor that human fleets had grown unexpectedly adaptive. He certainly never mentioned the word most aliens whispered when discussing humans: unpredictable. The crowd dispersed into feasting halls, their arrogance thick as incense. Yet, in the Emperor's private chamber, one advisor dared to question. "Majesty," hissed a serpentine elder, her scales dulled with age. "Are we certain they perished? I watched the footage, but the humans, they did not scream." The Emperor sneered, revealing serrated teeth. "They are animals. Even cornered animals may bare their fangs in silence. They are gone." But even he remembered the final moments of the footage. The woman's steady gaze, unflinching as the blast engulfed her. The man's grin, widening as though death were a private joke. The Emperor dismissed it, yet unease itched at his thoughts. Back in the cell, the silence stretched. Then the man leaned closer, lowering his voice. "So Yaga, what's the play? We wait till they're drunk on their own speeches and then walk out? Or do you want me to start singing Sweet Home Alabama until their ears bleed?" She did not look at him, but her words were cold, exact. "We wait. Patience kills more surely than bullets." "Patience, huh? That's your thing. Me, I'm more of a fireworks on the 4th of July kind of guy." He smirked. "Still, I'll trust you. Last time I didn't listen, I woke up in a crater." The guards exchanged nervous glances. These humans spoke in riddles, half nonsensical, half terrifying. One swore that when the man laughed, the shadows in the cell lengthened. Another claimed the woman's eyes glowed faintly when no one else was watching. Hours bled into silence until the echoes of celebration faded. The fortress dimmed into night cycle, though no stars pierced the artificial sky of the station. The guards grew lax, lulled by the belief that the trophies in their cell were broken relics. The man finally leaned back, his grin never faltering. "You know, it's kind of nice they think we're corpses. Makes life simpler. No small talk." The woman's pale eyes flickered toward the ceiling, as though she could see through steel and stone to the chamber above, where their execution had been replayed again and again for alien amusement. "They think we are trophies," she whispered. The softness of her voice only made the words more lethal. "They have mistaken hunters for prey." The man chuckled, stretching his arms as the restraining field sparked faintly. "Well, hell, let's not correct them just yet. Nothing better than surprising a host at his own party." Her gaze sharpened, cold and resolute. For the first time, she allowed herself the ghost of a smile. The silence pressed in like a storm waiting to break. Somewhere deep within the fortress, hidden systems hummed, waiting, listening, ready. And as the chamber above rang with alien laughter, the 2 humans sat in their cell, not broken, not afraid, but patient. The Empire believed they had slain Earth's fiercest predators. The Empire was wrong. The prison corridor smelled of ozone and disinfectant, an odor born of sterile arrogance. The Galactic Empire designed every inch of its fortress stations to humiliate its prisoners. No shadows, no privacy, no softness. Even the light itself seemed weaponized, sterile beams cutting across metallic walls in precise geometry. Yet for all the design, the human prisoners remained undisturbed, their spirits oddly buoyant. The guards talked about it in hushed tones as they patrolled. "Why do they smile?" asked a scaled sentry, his tail twitching with unease. "I have watched them for 3 cycles. The male jokes, the female stares. Neither shows despair. They are broken in a different way," another replied, though his own eyes flicked nervously toward the cell. Humans mask weakness with noise. But the more they whispered, the more their unease grew. Because humans were not behaving like prey. Inside the cell, the Boogeyman lounged against the far wall, whistling a jaunty tune that had no place in a galactic war prison. His voice echoed down the corridor, irritating, persistent. "You know," he said conversationally, "this reminds me of a motel in Nevada. Smelled about the same. Only that place had better wallpaper and worse coffee." Baba Yaga, seated with her back straight and her gaze fixed on nothing, finally tilted her head. "You talk too much." He grinned at her, his teeth flashing white in the artificial glow. "Yeah, but you like it. keeps the guards jumpy. She returned her eyes to stillness, her face unreadable marble. But her silence wasn't dismissal. It was calculation. Above their heads, in the feasting halls, the celebration continued. Alien officers filled goblets with luminous liquid, boasting of humanity's defeat. The holoscreens replayed the staged execution on a loop. Each time the flames engulfed the humans, laughter followed. Pathetic, snarled a reptilian commander, stabbing at a slab of meat with claws. All that noise Earth made, and look how they burn. Soft. A colleague, furred and sharp-eyed, leaned closer. Yet, have you noticed? In the footage, the woman does not flinch. The man smiles. Coincidence. Editing. Perhaps. The furred officer sipped and frowned. But I have studied human history. They are a strange species. They make war songs about drinking. They celebrate battles with parades and roasted animals. They play games with sticks and balls while enemies gather. What if we misunderstand them? The reptilian laughed harshly. You think they hide strength? They are primitives. The words echoed with false confidence, because deep down, every officer in the hall had seen the same thing. Defiance where there should have been terror. In the lower corridors, a minor guard approached the cell and sneered at the man inside. Tell me, human, what is this baseball you keep mentioning? The boogeyman's eyes lit with mischief. He leaned forward, lowering his voice as though sharing a sacred ritual. Oh, baseball? It's simple. Two teams face off. One throws a rock at the other, and the other hits it with a stick. But here's the fun part. The crowd cheers louder than your fleet cannons when someone runs in a circle. You wouldn't believe the savagery. Hot dogs, screaming fans, rival chants. Nations stop wars just to watch it. The guard blinked, antennae quivering. You fight over circles? Damn right, the boogeyman said, grinning. Circles and pride. And we keep score like it's life or death. The alien stepped back, unsettled. To his ears, it sounded like a ritualized blood sport camouflaged as entertainment. He hurried away before the man could explain further. Baba Yaga finally spoke, her voice a scalpel. You are sowing fear. Planting seeds, he corrected. Fear's the harvest. She said nothing more, but her pale eyes gleamed faintly in the sterile light. Later, as the fortress dimmed into false night, two guards wheeled a tray into the cell, nutrient paste, water, the bare minimum. The boogeyman sat up with exaggerated politeness. Dinner time, boys. You shouldn't have. Smells like, what's the word? Oh, yeah. Regret. The taller guard snarled, shoving the tray forward. Eat. Humans require fuel. Funny, the man said, tapping the paste with a finger. On Earth, we'd call this prison food. Which is accurate, I guess. But you know what's scarier than a hungry human? A full one. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. They couldn't tell if he was joking. Baba Yaga took her portion with mechanical precision, eating slowly, each movement efficient. She glanced at her companion. You waste energy. He winked. Nah, I'm just getting warmed up. That night, while the fortress slumbered, she whispered words so soft only he could hear. Tomorrow. He stopped humming. His grin shifted into something sharper. About time. When morning came, the fortress buzzed with routine. Guards filed reports, officers strutted, and the Emperor prepared another broadcast declaring Earth's subjugation. The prisoners were marched from their cell, wrists bound with energy cuffs, toward an interrogation chamber designed for spectacle. The aliens wanted to extract one final performance of weakness before disposing of them. The boogeyman sauntered along as though on a casual stroll. So this is the tour, huh? Seen better corridors. Needs plants. A splash of color. Maybe a jukebox. A guard slammed a stun rod against his back, but he only chuckled. Careful, buddy. Ticklish. Baba Yaga walked silently, her every step balanced, measured. She scanned the hall not as a captive, but as a tactician, mapping every guard position, every camera, every angle of weakness. Inside the chamber, a semicircle of alien officers waited. The Emperor's hologram shimmered at the center, his crown glinting with smug satisfaction. Humans, the hologram declared, you are the last echoes of your kind. Speak your final words before the galaxy, and know that your species is dust." The boogeyman tilted his head. "Final words? Sure. You ever tried barbecue ribs? Slow-cooked, smoky, tangy, makes you believe in heaven. Shame you'll never taste it." The chamber murmured in confusion. Some officers wrote notes, uncertain if barbecue was a code word for a weapon. The Emperor sneered. "Foolishness until the end." But Baba Yaga lifted her head, her eyes two frozen suns. Not the end. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. The beginning. The hologram flickered, unsettled by the calmness. "You have no armies, no fleets. You mistake visibility for power," she said. "The fox is unseen until it takes the throat." The boogeyman leaned back casually, adding, "She means you the throat." Laughter sputtered among the officers, but unease simmered beneath it. The humans should have begged. Instead, they planted dread. Then the moment shifted. The lights dimmed briefly, just a flicker, barely noticeable. But Baba Yaga's eyes sharpened. The boogeyman's grin widened. The alien technicians scrambled. Power fluctuation. Unscheduled. The Emperor barked, "Stabilize systems." But it was too late. In that flicker, the humans moved. Baba Yaga struck first. She pivoted, her energy cuffs sparking as she twisted them against the guard's weapon, redirecting its force into the wall. The explosion of light blinded half the chamber. She slid into motion, cold and precise, snapping bones with the efficiency of a surgeon. The boogeyman followed, laughing as he swung his bound wrists like a club into another guard's jaw. "You boys really should have frisked me for charm. Deadly stuff." He wrenched a plasma blade free, twirling it like a toy before cutting through his cuffs. Panic rippled. Officers scrambled, guards shouted, alarms wailed. The hologram of the Emperor flickered violently as reports poured in. Contain them. But they could not. The humans flowed like inevitability through the chamber. Baba Yaga's silence was its own terror, each motion final, each strike absolute. The boogeyman's jokes only deepened the nightmare, his laughter echoing over the screams. In minutes, the interrogation chamber lay in ruins. Officers cowered, guards sprawled broken. The humans stood in the center, breathing steady, unshaken. The boogeyman flipped the plasma blade in his hand and smirked. "Well, that was fun. What's next, prom night?" Baba Yaga scanned the wreckage, her eyes cold. "The trap is set. We proceed." Alarms continued to shriek. Across the station, command channels crackled with panic. The Emperor's hologram reformed, his voice trembling with fury. "What are you?" The woman looked straight into his projection, her tone ice and iron. "The mistake you should never have made." The boogeyman leaned closer to the flickering image, grinning. "Tell your fleet the party's over. And guess what? You're the piñata." The hologram blinked out as the fortress shuddered. Somewhere deep within its core, hidden systems activated. Systems the humans had been waiting for. For the first time, the Empire realized it was not the jailer. It was the cage. The fortress groaned as alarms wailed across its arteries of steel. Panic spread faster than orders. Guards stumbled over one another. Officers barked contradictory commands. And corridors once pristine with imperial efficiency became snarled with chaos. At the heart of the maelstrom, two humans walked side by side, strangely calm, as though they strolled down a quiet boulevard instead of the Empire's most secure installation. The boogeyman twirled the stolen plasma blade with lazy ease, his grin infuriatingly casual. "You know, this is reminding me of my cousin's wedding," he said. "Big crowd, bad lighting, everybody screaming, and me wondering how fast I could get to the exit before someone made me dance." Baba Yaga moved beside him like a shadow given form. Her every step was silent, her eyes calculating, dissecting the panicked motions of the aliens around them. Where he carried noise, she carried stillness. Together they were not opposites but complements, a rhythm of chaos and precision that unsettled every alien who glimpsed them. In the command chamber above, the Emperor thundered with outrage, his voice booming across holoscreens to every officer. "Contain them. They are two animals. Contain them." Yet no one could explain why two prisoners walked unscathed through squadrons of trained guards. Reports contradicted one another. They vanished from sight. They broke bones with impossible strength. They spoke words that seeded terror in the mind. The very inconsistency magnified fear. Advisors quarreled. The serpentine elder hissed, "Majesty, recall the histories. The humans have always concealed strength until the decisive moment. Their wars are sudden storms." "Superstition," snapped a reptilian commander. "They are flesh. They bleed." "Then why," she countered, "do they smile and fire?" Down below, the humans entered a transport hangar where ships idled like sleeping beasts. Dozens of alien soldiers scrambled for formation, weapons raised. The air vibrated with charged plasma. The boogeyman lifted his hands theatrically. "Whoa, careful now. You point those things all at once. Someone's bound to get hurt. Probably you." A commander stepped forward, mandibles clacking. "Surrender or be vaporized." The man tilted his head, grinning. "Surrender? Buddy, this is us being polite." The aliens hesitated. Something in his voice was wrong, not desperate, not mocking, but almost courteous. And yet behind the courtesy lay a promise of violence, too vast to measure. Baba Yaga spoke then, her tone flat, final. "Your weapons will not save you. You have already lost." The commander roared, "Fire." Dozens of bolts streaked across the hangar. Light filled the air like a storm of suns. But when it cleared, the humans still stood. The man had ducked and weaved with terrifying agility, the plasma blade a whirling shield. The woman had moved like smoke, gliding through gaps with impossible precision. Several soldiers lay crumpled, felled not by weapons, but by their own ricochets redirected with surgical calculation. The surviving aliens faltered, their courage unraveling. One dropped his weapon and fled. Another whispered, "They are demons." The boogeyman lowered his blade with a shrug. "Demons? Nah, just folks from Earth. But I get the confusion." They pushed through the wreckage, ignoring the fleeing soldiers. They had no need to kill unnecessarily. Fear was a sharper weapon. In the War Council chamber, the Emperor's claws raked across the console. How? How do they breach every defense? The elder spoke softly, almost with pity. "Majesty, perhaps we are not the hunters." The words rippled through the chamber like poison. None dared repeat them, yet every alien felt their truth settling in the gut. Meanwhile, in a quieter corridor, Baba Yaga and the boogeyman paused. She studied the walls, tracing faint vibrations with her fingertips. "Here," she said. The man peered at her. "Here what?" "Looks like a hallway to me." "A signal hub," she replied. "They do not know it yet, but their fortress is compromised." He grinned wider. "So the fuse is lit." She nodded once, calm and absolute. He chuckled, adjusting his grip on the blade. "And they thought we were the fireworks." As they moved deeper, whispers spread across the Empire's networks. Alien analysts intercepted fragments of strange transmissions, human codes hidden in harmless noise. Officers replayed recordings of the prisoners' conversations, dissecting them for meaning. "He said barbecue," muttered one analyst, trembling. "Could that be a code name? A weapon?" Another replayed the woman's words. "Arrogance precedes collapse." The alien swallowed. Perhaps it was not metaphor. Fear metastasized into paranoia. Fleets shifted nervously. Outposts recalled patrols. Commanders began doubting every order. In the depths of the fortress, the humans finally reached the hub, a chamber lined with humming conduits that pulsed like the veins of a colossal beast. Screens displayed Imperial networks, troop deployments, fleet positions. All of it lay open. The boogeyman let out a low whistle. "Well, would you look at that? Like finding the keys to Dad's car when you're 16. Baba Yaga moved to the console, her hands dancing across alien controls, as if they were extensions of her mind. "They will trace us soon, but not before it is done." The man leaned against the wall, watching her work with amusement. "You always make it sound so easy. Flip a few switches, doom an empire." Her pale eyes glimmered. "Empires fall the same way as men, not by strength, by weakness revealed." Above them, the Emperor received the impossible report. Humans had accessed the central systems. His voice thundered with desperation. Shut it down. Purge the hub. But even as the order rang out, the fortress shuddered. Hidden commands spread like wildfire through the Empire's networks. Communications scrambled, navigation corrupted, weapons misfired. The humans had not stumbled into escape. They had planned this. Advisors reeled. Majesty, they wanted to be captured. They let us bring them here. The Emperor froze, realization dawning like a blade across the throat. The prisoners were not trophies. They were infiltrators. Back in the hub, the Boogeyman clapped his hands once, grinning like a man at a barbecue pit. And now the fun begins. Focus, Baba Yaga murmured. Oh, I am. Just saying, it's not every day you watch a galactic empire trip over its own shoelaces. The fortress shook harder, alarms rising in pitch. Across the empire, fleets received corrupted orders. Some ships turned on allies. Others drifted powerless in space. Entire sectors went dark. The trap was not confined to this station. It stretched across the galaxy like a spider's web, and the humans had pulled the first strand. Alien commanders screamed into broken comms. The war council dissolved into shouting chaos. The Emperor himself gripped his throne with white-knuckled fury, yet fear gnawed beneath his rage. Majesty, the Elder whispered, you must withdraw. The humans are not two. They are legion. Down below, the Boogeyman tilted his head, listening to the fortress tremble. That's a good sound. Like popcorn popping. Baba Yaga pressed one final sequence, her voice as steady as stone. The message is sent. Message, he asked, still grinning. Her eyes turned to him, cold fire in their depths. To Earth. To begin. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then he laughed, not loud, but with the slow satisfaction of a predator who has cornered prey. Well, guess the Empire just found out we RSVP'd to the war. The hub lights dimmed, replaced by a pulsing red glow. Across the galaxy, systems collapsed into chaos. And in the command chamber, the Emperor's roar echoed, but beneath it lay something new, something terrifying in its unfamiliarity. Not triumph, fear. The fortress was no longer a fortress. It was a coffin rattling with panic. Lights strobed blood red across corridors, filled with smoke and confusion. The hum of power that once steadied the station had become a fractured pulse, erratic and dying. Alarms layered upon alarms, overlapping like screams. Baba Yaga moved through the chaos with the same stillness she had carried since her capture. Her face was carved from ice, her steps precise, her gaze merciless. To her, the pandemonium was a tool, not a distraction. The Boogeyman, by contrast, reveled in it. He walked with swagger, cracking jokes that only heightened the terror of those who heard him. Feels like Mardi Gras, he said as they passed a squad of terrified guards retreating down a hall. He tipped them a mock salute. You boys forgot the beads. The guards flinched as if the words themselves were curses. To them, every human phrase was a code, every joke a spell. Fear had twisted interpretation. In the command chamber, the Emperor raged, his voice breaking beneath its own fury. Find them. End them. He slammed his claws into the console, cracking obsidian panels. But every order he gave arrived garbled at its destination, twisted into nonsense. Ships turned against allies. Stations cut themselves off. Fleets fired into empty voids. The trap had unfurled across the Empire like a snare around prey too proud to notice it. The Elder at his side whispered, Majesty, it spreads. Systems fall one by one. This was their design. He turned on her with venom. Two creatures cannot unmake an empire. But even as he roared, the truth grew undeniable. These were not just two creatures. They were a message written in flesh and blood, the edge of a blade poised at the Empire's throat. Below, in the bowels of the fortress, squads mustered in desperation. Armored beasts bristling with weaponry advanced in formation, towering over the smaller soldiers. Their plating glowed, their cannons charged, their confidence brittle but intact. The humans approached, two against many. The Boogeyman grinned. Finally, a challenge. I was getting bored. Baba Yaga drew no weapon, for she needed none. When the beasts opened fire, she slipped between the streams of light, as though she had already known their path. Each strike she delivered was surgical. A joint broken, a power line severed, a cannon redirected. She did not waste motion. She did not breathe heavier. She did not falter. The man, by contrast, was chaos incarnate. He shouted old sports chants as he fought, his blade carving arcs of molten light. Defense. Defense, he bellowed, slamming one beast into another. Touchdown, he crowed, impaling a third through its glowing core. His laughter carried louder than the gunfire. The surviving beasts broke ranks, retreating despite their size and strength. They had never known fear. Now it wrapped around them like chains. The aliens watching the feeds whispered in horror. They enjoy it. On human lips, joy in battle was not madness. It was nature. As they carved through resistance, the humans spoke little. But in the rare moments between clashes, their differences showed. You are reckless, Baba Yaga said, wiping alien blood from her sleeve. Reckless keeps him guessing, the Boogeyman replied, grinning through the haze. You do the math, I'll do the noise. Noise can be fatal. He leaned close, eyes bright with mischief. That's the point, sweetheart. And still, she did not correct him. The fortress shook harder as explosions rippled through its frame. The humans' tampering had spread into reactors, destabilizing the very spine of the station. But the trap was larger still. Beyond this fortress, across the empire, entire sectors were unraveling. Communications collapsing, navigation blinded, allies turning suspicious eyes on one another. For the first time in generations, the empire was not united. It was prey scattered across the dark. The emperor's voice cracked across comms, desperate now. They are symbols. Kill them, and the infection ends. But the infection had never been the humans themselves. It was what they represented: unpredictability, patience, and the will to smile in the face of annihilation. The Boogeyman kicked open a blast door and stepped into a chamber overlooking the stars. Through the fractured shields, entire fleets shimmered beyond, their formations breaking as human-coded signals scrambled their orders. He whistled low. Looks like rush hour traffic back home, only with more explosions. Baba Yaga stepped beside him, her pale eyes fixed on the chaos outside. This was inevitable. He glanced at her. You knew the moment we got caught. Yes. He barked a laugh. And here I thought you were just being stoic. Turns out you were leading me by the nose. Her lips curved faintly, not into a smile, but into something sharper. Would you have followed otherwise? He paused, then grinned wider. Guess not. Behind them, another squad stormed in, weapons raised. The Boogeyman spun his blade, sighing theatrically. They never learn. Baba Yaga surged forward before he could move, a blur of silent death. When she finished, the chamber was littered with broken bodies, and she had not broken stride. The man shook his head, mock admiration in his grin. Remind me never to argue with you about dinner plans. The Empire watched all of it, watched their finest soldiers fall, watched their technology twisted against them, watched their certainty dissolve into panic. Across alien worlds, broadcasts replayed human defiance, and whispers spread like wildfire. The humans are not weak. The humans are patient hunters. In the command chamber, the Emperor's advisors finally broke. Some fled. Some begged for retreat. Only the Elder remained, her eyes resigned. Majesty, you have fed the flame. Humanity is not extinguished. It is awakened. He struck her down with a backhand, but her words lingered in the silence afterward. The fortress groaned one last time as the humans reached its central spire. From here, the entire station systems could be unraveled with a single command. Baba Yaga laid her hand on the console, her pale eyes catching the flicker of failing lights. It ends now, she whispered. The Boogeyman leaned against the wall, rolling his shoulders. Ends? Nah. This is just chapter 1. Together, they initiated the sequence. Energy bled from the core, spreading outward in waves. Across the stars, Imperial fleets convulsed as if struck by invisible fists. Ships collided, weapons misfired, alliances shattered. The empire had not been toppled by armies. It had been gutted from within, undone by arrogance. The emperor himself appeared as a flickering hologram, his voice breaking into static. You dare? You think two humans can destroy the eternal empire? Baba Yaga met his gaze, her voice low and final. Not two. All. The boogeyman grinned at the trembling projection. Tell your people we're polite neighbors. Until you knock on the wrong door. The hologram dissolved into static. The spire erupted in light, a chain reaction racing through the fortress. Systems screamed, power bled away, and the station began to fracture. The humans stood at the center of it, calm amid collapse, as though the destruction were nothing more than weather passing overhead. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt fear untempered by arrogance. Across the galaxy, whispers became certainty. Humanity was no victim, no animal to be caged. Humanity was the shadow at the edge of the fire, the predator smiling in silence until the strike. The fortress began to break apart, debris tumbling into the void. The boogeyman looked at his companion, his grin softened but no less sharp. So what now? Drinks on Earth. She regarded him with her pale, merciless eyes. Now we hunt. The word carried into the collapsing night, a promise etched in fire and fear. And across the empire, commanders who once mocked humanity finally understood that they had not killed trophies. They had awakened myths.